25th Amendment, Part 5, Why Section 4 Failed to Protect America. Imagine the people whose job is to remove an incapacitated president are the same people who benefit most from pretending he's fine.
Imagine an independent investigator documenting that the president's memory is too impaired to prosecute, then hiding the audio evidence until after he leaves office. Imagine a constitutional safety system designed to protect America from an incapacitated president being completely useless when actually needed. You don't have to imagine it. It happened and exposed a fundamental flaw in America's constitutional system. This is Part 5, the final part of the series on the 25th Amendment. Part 1 explained why the amendment was created. Part 2 showed how Section 4 could be misused for politics. Part 3 documented President Biden's observable decline. Part 4 revealed the Hur Contradiction, that Biden's memory was too impaired to prosecute him, but remained president with full powers. Part 5 raises this critical question. If Section 4 was designed to protect America from an impaired president, why didn't it work? Despite the Herr report and public evidence of Biden's decline, those with the constitutional authority to challenge Biden's competence, the Vice President and Cabinet, never invoked Section 4. Vice President Kamala Harris and the Cabinet never moved to declare Biden unable to serve. Why not? Harris was trapped. Any possible presidential campaign of her own needed support of Biden and the Democrat Party. Invoking the 25th Amendment would be viewed as betrayal, or worse, as a naked power grab and destroy any chance of winning election on her own. Cabinet members faced similar pressure. Biden had appointed them, and careers were tied to his presidency. If they voted to declare him incompetent, they too stood to suffer personal political repercussions. Invoking Section 4 against their own president would be admitting Republicans were right about Biden's decline, a politically devastating admission. The media played a role too. For months, many insisted Biden was sharp and capable, like the famous Joe Scarborough description of the best Biden ever. Admitting there were real concerns meant admitting they'd misled the public. The Section 4 failure involved people supposed to be immune to political pressure. Special Counsel Robert Hur was an independent investigator who owed loyalty to the Constitution, not to protecting politicians. Hur's report came out in February 2024, and a transcript of Hur's interview of President Biden from October 2023 was released in March 2024. The audio recordings of that exact interview weren't released until May 2025, over 14 months later and after Biden left office. No legal reason to withhold the audio existed once the transcript was public. The only difference between audio and transcript was format, and that difference was everything. Audio reveals what transcripts can't: pauses, confusion, tone of voice, struggle to remember. The audio provided undeniable evidence of Biden's status that transcripts allowed defenders to explain away. Her's excuse for not prosecuting was strange. He said Biden's poor memory in 2023 would create reasonable doubt about criminal intent. Criminal intent is judged when a crime occurs, not years later. Biden took documents as a senator in the 1970s and 1980s, and as vice president from 2009 to 2017. Retaining classified documents is an ongoing offense. Biden's 2023 memory problems are irrelevant to his intent when he took documents and kept them for decades. Herr created Biden's affirmative defense. That's a defense attorney's job, not a prosecutor's. Special Counsel Jack Smith was prosecuting Donald Trump for nearly identical document offenses and not looking to provide a defense for then-former President Trump. The Justice Department concealed the audio until after Biden left office, allowing Harris and the Cabinet to avoid public pressure to invoke Section 4. People could dismiss a transcript, but not the president's obvious mental challenges revealed by the audio. Hearing Biden struggle to remember his vice presidency or son's death would have made his status obvious. Her's obligation was to the American people who had a right to know whether their president was fit to serve. Delaying release of the audio evidence while Biden was still president was part of the cover-up. The Biden situation reveals Section 4's flaw. It might work for a sudden and devastating event like a stroke and coma, when incompetence is clear and unquestionable. Gradual decline is different. When mental capacity fades slowly, people rationalize the changes and make accommodations without acknowledging the problem. Biden's team limited public appearances and schedule, employed shorter stares, and systems to work around his limitations. These accommodations were an effort for the administration to appear functional in an attempt to avoid questions of presidential capacity. Biden's incidents with dead people were dismissed as insignificant. Asking where Jackie Walorski was months after her death, confusing Emmanuel Macron with François Mitterrand, who'd been dead for 28 years, these got explained away as momentary lapses. Each incident could be minimized. Taken together, they showed cognitive decline the system couldn't handle. Gradual decline is probably more common than sudden incapacity and more dangerous because it can go on without being addressed. The 25th Amendment's Section 4 solution requiring action by the Vice President and Cabinet is completely ineffective at dealing with it. This isn't new. In 1881, President Garfield got shot and lingered for 80 days. Vice President Chester Arthur was afraid people would accuse him of stealing power, so for 3 months America had no functioning president. Woodrow Wilson had a massive stroke in 1919 that his wife and doctor hid. Franklin Roosevelt's serious decline in 1944-1945 got downplayed by his inner circle. The people closest to the president always had reasons to hide the problem. The 25th Amendment was supposed to fix this. It can't overcome the basic political reasons that drive cover-ups. The same reservations that kept Chester Arthur from acting in 1881 kept Kamala Harris from acting in 2024. The Biden situation never got resolved through constitutional means. After the June 2024 debate with President Trump made Biden's decline obvious to the public, political pressure forced Biden to drop his re-election bid. Dropping out of an election isn't the same as dealing with present incapacity. Biden had full presidential powers for 7 more months. The man Herr said couldn't form criminal intent remained in charge of a nuclear arsenal. The world dodged a nuclear bullet through pure luck that no crisis requiring quick presidential decision-making happened during those nearly 3 years. Luck isn't a constitutional safeguard. The Biden case proves Section 4 has a fatal structural flaw. The amendment gives remedial power to the exact people for whom the decision is personally and politically untenable. The vice president who initiates Section 4 faces likely political suicide. The cabinet members who vote for removal were chosen by the president. While such people would not take such a step lightly, the institutional pressures are to not act at all. Even supposedly independent investigators like special counsels have political incentives to suppress evidence until it's too late to matter. From 2022 through January 2025, America had a president that a federal prosecutor said had a memory too impaired to hold him criminally responsible, yet kept full presidential powers including command of the armed forces. A president who asked for a dead congresswoman to speak. A president who confuses current leaders with others dead for decades, thinks the Indian Prime Minister is the leader of China, and is unable to handle the scrutiny of a debate. A president whose staff alters his environment in an effort to conceal his limitations with shorter steps to Air Force One. Section 4 couldn't address any of it. The mechanism failed because the rules themselves create impossible political incentives. No vice president will commit political suicide, no cabinet will vote itself out of power, and no institution will release evidence forcing a constitutional crisis when delay is possible. Section 4 cannot function as intended because it fundamentally misunderstands human nature and political incentives. The 25th Amendment's Section 4 itself must be amended. The current system has proven it doesn't work when needed. Congress must investigate and propose reforms to address the structural problems. The mechanism needs to involve people outside the cabinet without a personal stake in covering up incapacity. This could be a medical review board, retired judges, or bipartisan congressional leaders, anyone not directly tied to the president's administration. There needs to be mandatory periodic cognitive assessments for sitting presidents. These assessments should be conducted by independent medical professionals and the results made public. Presidential capacity shouldn't be a state secret. The current language, unable to discharge the powers and duties, is too vague and allows too much room for political calculation and rationalization. Congress should establish specific criteria based on medical and psychological standards. There should be a mechanism for outside parties, Congress, state governors, or citizens, to petition for a capacity review when there's widespread concern. These reforms won't be easy,
Amending the Constitution requires 2/3 of both houses of Congress and ratification by 3/4 of states. It's supposed to be difficult. The founders made it hard to change the Constitution so it wouldn't be altered for trivial reasons. This isn't trivial. A cognitively impaired president commanding the world's largest nuclear arsenal is a threat to human survival. The world got lucky with Biden. We can't count on luck next time. The work the founders started, and that the writers of the 25th Amendment continued in 1965, remains unfinished. The flaws of Section 4 pose a threat to America and the world. America's constitutional system must provide an answer. Contact your representatives in Congress. Tell them you want hearings on reforming Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. Tell them to propose a constitutional amendment that fixes these problems. This affects the planet. When a president with documented cognitive impairment controls weapons capable of ending civilization, constitutional reform isn't academic, it's survival. The 25th Amendment was added because the founders left critical questions unanswered, and it was an incomplete answer. It won't get fixed unless Americans demand it. The stakes are too high to stay silent. Thanks for watching this series on the 25th Amendment. Here's a reminder to review parts 1 to 4 for a complete understanding. Leave a comment about what reforms you'd suggest. Constitutional illiteracy is dangerous. Combat it. Please like, share, and subscribe to Constitutional Soundbites.